And we're live, Mock Draft Live tonight, joined by the great Matt Babbage, the great Tyler Knably, and hosted by, I guess, all three of us, but then also me, Jason Allwine, ready to get some mock draft action post-NFL Combine. We've got 12 teams today. We're doing SuperFlex. We're doing 4 rounds. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. Before I press the start button, I'm going to throw it to each of you. Give me some maybe quick thoughts from the Combine. Matt, we were talking a little bit. Why don't you say something real quick?
Yeah, so if you've tuned into previous episodes of the Dynasty Roundtable or Player Profiler today, you know I'm the resident JJ McCarthy hater. He did not look good at the Combine. The one thing he had to do was throw a good go route, throw a good corner route, throw well deep down the field. These were the things that he charted poorly at in college, and he was really bad again. I shared the reception perception graph on Player Profiler today. Oh my God. Like, you would not, if I didn't tell you who it was, you would never in a million years believe that people were saying that this quarterback was going to be drafted top 15. But
well, you might have a decision to make at your 1-5. Real quickly, Tyler, what's one big takeaway from the Combine before we get going today?
Big takeaway is that, I mean, at least JJ McCarthy went out there and competed, because there's some people on Twitter throwing out some interesting questions about some dudes who apparently are afraid to compete, like Caleb Williams. I mean, that guy doesn't know what competition is, I don't think, according to fantasy Twitter. So in all seriousness, I think I was really a fan of this is like the only thing I care about. Ray Davis, man. No, I need to be the voice for Ray Davis, because I feel like I'm a pretty plugged in person on fantasy Twitter. It's pretty much all I see. Okay. I feel like I'm pretty plugged in. I haven't seen this guy's name once. Not one, oh, Ray Davis, sneaky guy, or even nothing the other way either. Like, Ray Davis, don't go in on Ray Davis. Like, it's like there's just no talk about him, and he's probably gonna be like a top. I would not be shocked if he's a top 5 running back drafted. Like, it wouldn't shock me. I'm serious. I think he's that good. Like, there's nothing in his game where the stats, they check out. The film, it checks out. The only question mark is that he's going to be 25 in November. That's the only the only thing. Yes, I know he's old, but I think he's really good at football. So that's my big thing. But yeah, ready to mock draft today, and probably take Ray Davis at 111. Just kidding, probably not, but I will take Ray Davis.
Well, Alex, our producer for the show, you've already got a great couple quotes right off the bat. If you want to hear some more thoughts on the Combine, go check out this morning's episode of Wake and Take and the Sonic Truth this morning. Great Combine episodes, all sorts of takeaways there. Let's go ahead and get started. I am curious. You mentioned some Caleb Williams. R101 here, STLP333. Shout out from the Trey Gods Invitational League is on auto draft. So it's going to be quick. Let's see it. I've got the sound off, so we won't be annoyed by that. Oh, and the auto draft went off. So I guess we still are on tension here. But, I mean, you've got to expect that it's Caleb Williams, even though he didn't compete. But, some out there still want to take the Marvin Harrison Jr. route. We'll see what happens here.
No, Caleb Williams is the undisputed 101.
You think so?
We have never had a more clear Superflex 101 than we do right now. Just don't overthink it. It was this way at the end of the season. It was that way at the end of the college football season. There's nothing that happened in between that should change your mind.
For sure. And I'm also not going to overthink it. I don't care. I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's about
great.
As
absolutely.
As you can get. I think arguably Caleb Williams could still miss, low probability. I really don't feel that way about Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's going to be special. Excited to see no matter where he goes. And then Cody is made with really the first choice of these drafts, and he's going to go the Drake Maye route. Do either of you guys have some thoughts there? Ooh, and Matty has an interesting pick as well.
Ooh, yeah. I was just say real quick on Drake Maye. It obviously comes down to, if you're just going off consensus, Drake Maye versus Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, I think better pick for a single QB league because the rushing quarterback upside. But if you're picking in the 103, I think Podfather talked about this. It's a really good point. You can't miss on your 103 selection, and I think Jaden Daniels has a higher percentage of missing than Drake Maye does, if we're just going off kind of what the consensus feels about both prospects. I just don't. I think you have to take Drake Maye there if you love to live life on the edge. maybe you're playing blackjack and the dealer's showing a 5 and you're hitting on like 17, then I don't know, maybe draft Jaden Daniels, but I don't think that's maybe not profit the most money over time, but yeah.
That's fair. I think that's reasonable given we don't know the landing spots now. Could certainly change. Matt, why don't you go ahead and talk a bit on your Malik Nabers pick?
Yeah, so in my eyes, there's a slight tier break between Drake Maye and Jaden Daniels, and that's where the wide receiver 1 and the wide receiver 2 live. I really, really, really want to hear Matty's insight on Odunze, because I'm still pretty confident in Malik Nabers wide receiver 2. So I really would love to hear Matty's argument. I'm sure he's got some valid points post combine. And then between Nabers and Daniels, there's just some issues, with Jaden Daniels' age. We've rarely ever seen prospects that are this old pop in the NFL, and he has some short-term lifespan, but I'm making a longer-term play with Malik Nabers.
I think that's totally fair. And Matty Kiwoom did join me on Wake and Take this morning, kind of talking about the combine, and Rome Odunze to him is a superstar. He's very, very excited to see him at the next level. He loved how he interviewed. He loved every single drill, and he loved the fact that he went out there and competed despite not necessarily having to, and showing up especially well in the gauntlet drills. I think that will be something that we see in these rookie drafts, especially here in the mocks. I'll go ahead and throw it to you, Tyler, about your Blake Corum pick before I make my decision here.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a running back in the first round too. And I think I had Trey Benson as my RB1 and I almost clicked the name. Obviously he was a big winner at the combine, but I think Blake Corum, people talk about 4.5, I think Kyron Williams, what did he run, like a 4.7 or something like that when he did it? It was a terrible time. I don't think maybe it was not 4.7, but it was a terrible time. And 4.5, it was a 4.52 for Blake Corum. That's not that bad of a time. I think if you watched him on film, that's about what you expected him to run. I don't think anyone other than Prize Picks listing him at 4.39 on the opening day. I don't think anybody thought that he was going to run a 4, in the 4.3s or mid 4.4s. It always felt like he was kind of 4.52, especially kind of still coming out the ACL, probably fully healthy next year as a rookie in the NFL. But I love the way he plays football. I think he's just, when you get the ball in his hands, just the amount of snaps he's had in college, against defense is built to stop the run, and he still goes off. I get it. I think Michigan had 6 offensive linemen at the combine, which is 6 is crazy because there's only 5 spots. But I don't know. I just think Corum, I think he's my new RB1. It also feels like he might get the highest draft capital too, especially if he goes to Los Angeles, which is, obviously it's an easy comparison to make. But I just like Blake Corum. I think he's get the ball in this guy's hands. He's going to make magic happen for you. Where I think Trey Benson, he's going to miss some holes here and there. Some stuff some big holes he missed that I saw kind of in some of his films. So I'm high on Blake Corum.
I think that was a Blake Corum manifesto. I feel like you almost an entire half round on Blake.
Sorry,
Corum,
my bad.
I'm with you. I got to take Blake Corum in the first mock draft live we did this season. I'm very much in on him being a Michigan fan and everything, and I do think he will be the first running back drafted. Not really failing that Jim Harbaugh shook his head and a little smile when he ran that 4.52. I went with Adonai Mitchell. I was hoping Worthy would go there. I don't think he's really going to fall out of the first round in most of these, but I was hoping he would. And Adonai Mitchell, a totally fine consolation prize. Still a high 4.340. Still some solid college stats. And I think probably going to be that guy that ends up landing in that Chiefs the more and more this process goes on. I think Xavier Worthy took himself out of that late first round conversation. And now we're talking about Adonai Mitchell and Brian Thomas kind of being those guys taken in the later 20s, end of the first round. And I'm hoping it's Mitchell in Kansas City. But either way, Matt, what did you think about Javon Baker?
First, I think Adonai Mitchell is someone who I'm almost considering landing spot proof because so stat for context, only 2 players in the combine have ever recorded I can't remember what the 40 time was, but essentially Adonai Mitchell and DK Metcalf are the only 2 players in NFL combine history to run their 40 time with their vertical leap at their frame. These are 2 incredible athletes, and Adonai Mitchell has green flags in all of the areas that DK Metcalf had red flags as a prospect. So we should be all over Adonai Mitchell. And then it was between the receivers went as follows: Adonai, Mitchell, Lad McConkey, and then so I landed with my third choice in Javon Baker. Receiver out of UCF, just can flat out ball. I don't think I can put him above Lad McConkey with what he's done throughout this pre-draft process. I should have known for a fact that Matty Kiwoom was going to take Jalen Wright before me, so that was fun. So that really leaves me with quite the decision to make. And I'm going to take somebody who is more of a satellite plus back, but has the pass catching ability to make that stick in the NFL with a role. And I'm going to take Will Shipley out of Clemson.
Interesting. I haven't really seen much Shipley love, if I'm going to be honest with you. So I'm going to give you the floor, and then I'll talk about my Brenden Rice pick that I took just before that.
Ray Garvin told me everything I need to know about Will Shipley. It's simply he's not going to be used a lot as a rusher, but he has the pass catching prowess to carve out a role for himself. He has 90th percentile speed. He's 5'11", 206. So the BMI is not great. Again, he's not a big rusher, but he has a 75th percentile college target share as well, with 2 seasons over 30 receptions before the age of 21. So he's a pure pass catcher, but we're in the back of the third round. We're in kind of a tier break. Bucky Irving doesn't have the pass catching ability, nor does he have the frame. And, I'm not as sold on Ray Davis or the kid out of Louisville just yet.
Can we real quick about Bucky Irving? Like, was there a bigger loser at the running back position than Bucky Irving?
No.
It was
maybe Audric Estime, but we already knew he was going to be slow.
Yeah, exactly. Audric asked me what was he? I think Cody had the tweet from the combine where it was like a picture of Braylon Allen and then a picture of Audric Estime, and I thought they were kind of relative in size. Estime looked way big. It kind of looked like Braylon Allen slimmed down a little bit, like he was going to run the 40, but he didn't. So I don't know what that's all about, but it just looked like Estime was he didn't slim up for no 40-yard dash. That was his playing weight at Notre Dame for sure. He looked absolutely ginormous. But Bucky Irving, it's interesting because you think his game it doesn't really necessarily relate to speed, but it kind of just feels like any Jahmyr Gibbs hope of a 3-down semi workhorse role that he had went out the window with that speed score. I think he's more just third down back, really good catching the ball in the backfield, but I don't see him being much more than that. Unfortunately, in the NFL, some people he in best ball, he's in that Braylon Allen Estime tier. I just don't think he's in that tier anymore. So
totally reasonable. I was thinking about adding around here. I feel like we
please do.
Screw it. Everyone watching, everyone in. We're adding around. How do I do this?
I'm gonna have to dive deep.
I had to choose between 2 players, awesome. And I want the other one to come back to me.
We're adding around.
There we go.
Did it show? We good?
I don't see anything. Oh. Maybe we can't add around.
Yeah, maybe we can't add around. Maybe I'll add a tight end or something. Flex. What happens there? Maybe since it already started, we might have screwed it. But either way,
that's okay.
Ah, damn it!
I went with Brenden Rice. Unfortunately, probably mostly due to the sleeper ADPs not being totally great right now, and in the middle of doing all of the button clicking. But Brenden Rice is a player I wanted to plant my flag on if given the opportunity to. I think he tested exactly as well as you wanted him to. He said he's bigger and faster than Jerry Rice in the interviews. He was a guy that I really liked at the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to land somewhere nice, and I don't even really think that matters. He plays bigger and faster than his size suggests. He had 12 touchdowns last season, even if he didn't have the most yardage on USC. Still
there we
scores
go.
a ton. And the rounds did come in. In fact, we're up to 7 rounds. So I might have to subtract one, maybe. And then I guess
subtract 2.
Yeah, probably subtract 2. Went with Joe Milton just because we're in SuperFlex. I feel like his big arm and somebody's just going to take him to sit.
Can we talk about how the back end of these drafts are just loaded with talent? I mean, just from the 3rd round on, we have Jalen Wright, Will Shipley, Jalen Polk, Isaac Guerrero, even though I'm not too high on him past his 40, Ricky Pearsall, Devontae Walker, Malik Washington in the 5th round. That's awesome. Jalen McMillan. There's still another guy on the board that I'm hoping no one takes. But I feel like you could go into one of these drafts and just draft receivers and have an incredible draft.
100%.
Definitely.
100%.
It's a stacked class at wide receiver. Totally deep. Incredibly deep. I am curious, maybe hear your thoughts. Where do you think, like, let's just go with Zay Flowers. Where do you think Zay Flowers would fall in this year's draft class? Right?
I'm looking at
Flowers.
Zay Flowers, because what was he, the wide receiver? Because it was like JSN, and then it was kind of Zay Flowers last year, right? Am I forgetting someone?
And QJ technically.
QJ, but I felt like kind of I guess. Oh, and Jordan Addison, obviously Jordan Addison. Yeah, I don't know, man, because like I think you kind of look at. I'm trying to remember like what we thought of Zay Flowers as the prospect, not what we see him as now, because he had a really bad year for the Ravens. So I think if you're looking at like the prospect and you're looking at because him and QJ were kind of in that same tier, like QJ, Jordan Addison, like people had their favorites, and people were actually down on Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers was going later in like first round of drafts, so I think I'd put him like, oh man, it feels like he'd be in that Worthy Mitchell tier. Or like McConkey, like maybe that area, somewhere in there, maybe like an early second now. I think that I don't know. What do you think?
I'd be a little higher. I think he'd be wide receiver in this class.
Let's play the name game. I mean, obviously Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, Malik Nabers. You put all three of them ahead of Zay Flowers, right?
Yes.
So then Matt, Troy Franklin, Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers.
Tyler.
Zay Flowers, probably, yeah.
That dude was drunk running the gauntlet. What are we talking about here?
Straight line. Are we overreacting to the
100%
run a little bit?
100%, but it's fun too.
No, you're 100% right.
I mean, he's one of the other players that was a really big faller from this event. We talked a
he
bit
didn't run
about
as fast
Irving, Troy Franklin, big faller even. I don't know if he'll even continue to be a first round draft pick in these things going forward. So let's see. How do we? I guess the whole.
I'll buy a dip if there's a dip. I would take Zay Flowers. Brian Thomas and Zay Flowers is where the line gets really blurred for me.
Are you a big Brian Thomas guy? I've seen some like not so great things about Brian. It's like I feel you either like Brian Thomas or you don't. I don't think Matty Q. Maybe I think I was watching Matty Q and talking about it today. How he said Brian Thomas, like he's really good at one thing, but he's not. He's not a great route runner. Like I don't think he could be the number one by himself.
Yeah, I mean, how much of that is due to Malik Nabers being awesome and way more versatile. That being said, I think Zay Flowers and Brian Thomas both have similar concerns. The divider is, and why I think I'd prefer Zay Flowers still, is because Zay's prototypically a beta plus, which is better than a fake alpha that can't really do anything other than run fast and jump high. He's not quite Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas, but he has shades of Keon Coleman.
Are you calling Keon Coleman a fake alpha?
I called Keon Coleman Brian Edwards, I believe, just 2 days ago. I was way too in on Brian. I have seen. I watched him saying, "I have seen this before."
Yeah. What was Brian Edwards? A third round pick? I think he was a third round pick.
He was a third round pick because he broke his foot before the combine and couldn't really do any testing.
Yeah, I remember when he got traded to the Falcons. I was like, "Oh, here's a wide receiver, like 1 or 2," and then he did nothing. Got healthy scratched. Unbelievable.
Let's go player by player here. We'll start with the 101. We had STLP going with Caleb Williams at the 101. Didn't overthink it. Brought it back around with Bo Nix at the 201. Roman Wilson, still a third-round pick. I
love it.
Say what you will. You think you love that. I think that, I guess, I mean, I would take Roman Wilson over Keon Coleman, Estime Corley, right? Anyway, I think that was a really solid pick there, and then finishes out with Tez Walker and Malik Washington, who's pretty solid as well. Anyone have any big thoughts on this one? I guess Roman Wilson is kind of the big takeaway. I'll ask, actually, since we're here, should Bo Nix be drafted before Michael Penix, Matt?
Yeah. Probably.
I agree. I think Bo Nix gets higher draft capital than Penix.
I do too.
I think that's going to be the thing that is the debating factor in terms of where you take him in rookie drafts come like May, June, like during the summer, is which one gets drafted higher is probably going to be the deciding factor. I guess it depends on landing spot, what the quarterback looks like in each room. But like if the Broncos get like Bo Nix, like maybe they just really like Bo Nix and Bo Nix goes to the Broncos. Like, I mean, you kind of like how about this though? Let's get a different question. What if Bo Nix goes to the Broncos and JJ McCarthy goes like to a team that already has a veteran quarterback? He's not going to play right away. Who are you taking in rookie drafts?
I guess, unfortunately, Bo Nix, but I feel like that's a situation where he's almost destined to fail. Maybe. Unless Russell, I mean, we're going to find out, right? Russell Wilson today, the news breaks, right? We kind of already knew, but the Broncos have officially kind of decided to release him when the new league starts. Is he totally washed? Like, would like Bo Nix today be better than what Wilson was giving last season? I think is a big question out there. Matt, you were going to say something.
What if Denver signs Jameis Winston, reunited with Sean Payton, draft Bo Nix, develop the kid?
Jameis Winston developing Bo Nix. That sounds great for fantasy.
Well, we can't have we can't have Jarrett Stidham mentoring Bo Nix. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Whoa, what's with the bad talk on Studham? Come on, man.
Studham. Sounds like you're stuttering.
Stidham is probably better than Bo Nix right now, so I'm not hating on him.
I kind of like Bo Nix a little bit. I'm not saying he's gonna I'm not saying I'm taking Bo Nix over Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye or something like that, but I think he played really well within the system at Oregon. I think everyone had expectations for what they wanted him to be at Auburn. They wanted him to be this next quarterback, early declare, just had success right away, and it just didn't happen for him. And he goes to Oregon and has 2 really good seasons for them. And I don't know. I think he plays well kind of in structure. I don't think he's one of these guys where you put him in any offense. Like, he has to be in the right situation for him to succeed as what I would be thinking if I'm drafting him. But I think Bo Nix there's a little bit more than meets the eye with Bo Nix. There's something about him that I kind of like. Just I don't know what it is, but I do like me some Bo Nix. I think Penix scares me a little bit more.
They've both been in college since the beginning of the Trump administration, so they both don't have age going for them.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, I mean, as we can tell with my Ray Davis hype, age is just a number for me.
Yeah.
Hey, man, let's not.
I'm just saying. I'm just talking about running backs and quarterbacks and draft prospects. Okay, let's not.
YouTube algorithm. It was a misunderstanding. Please don't demonetize us.
We'll move on now to me. I drafted the 102. I kind of already mentioned my first 4 picks, but I did round out with Theo Johnson. Wanted to take a shot on tight end there. And Theo Johnson, I think, is going to get drafted a bit earlier than the guy that I was also deciding between in Ben Sinnott. Both had great Senior Bowls. Both did really, really well at the Combine. I just think Theo Johnson, 6'6", 260 pounds, on top of being as athletic as he is really, really going to help his draft stock. And hopefully he doesn't just become another one of those athletic tight ends that kind of never becomes anything. We keep seeing it in these drafts, and I hope at one point it actually hits. At the 103, Coach of the Year 74, when Drake Maye 103, we talked about that, and then Michael Penix does get the pick at 2-3. Then Jatavion Sanders at 303, Jermaine Burton at 403, and then McClellan at 5-3. Any takeaways from this one? Jatavion Sanders, I feel like, had a very disappointing combine, despite being such kind of a physical specimen. Are any of you guys down on him after that?
Yeah, in non-tight end premium, I'm definitely not touching him with a 3rd round pick. It would probably be a 4th or a 5th. So not completely out, but with just how single tight end works, if I'm not getting Brock Bowers, I don't think Jatavion Sanders with a 3rd round pick is going to save my roster. Whereas you have a lot of really good talent like Jalen Wright, Jalen Polk, etc. out there. Maybe even taking a shot on Spencer Rattler if I'm a team that hasn't had a quarterback yet.
Matty Kiwoom at the 104. Romo Odunze, Lad McConkey, then in the second round, then gets a really great value on Jalen Wright, 3-4. I think that guy's definitely going to sneak into the second round for sure. And then gets Cade Stover as his tight end, which I guess we'll see, right? I don't know. I think that he's not as athletic or as good of a receiver as some of these later tight ends taken. So I'm not too excited about his fantasy football prospects. Then he gets a running back that I'm pretty excited about, Kamani Vidal, who literally had the most rush yards out of any of the running backs in this draft process right now last season, over 1,600 rush yards, and tested really, really well as well with like a 4.46 40 while still being almost 220 pounds. I think that he's going to be a really good running back to keep your eye on. And 5th round is a really, really good value for him. Either of you guys have a thought on Matty Kiwoom's really solid team?
I think it's a really good draft. I mean, you get Odunze, you get McConkey and Jalen, like just that top 3 right there. I mean, you could make an argument that like what Jalen Wright did at the combine, like he should be like a top 4 to 5 running back, or like even top 3.
Yeah.
I think that's what Matt was saying about him on Sonic Truth today. So I don't know. I think Jalen Wright could be like, he's coming out of SEC. He's an early declare. He's big. He's fast. Like all the checks are checking right now on Jalen Wright, I think.
What did Matt say about Jalen Wright on the Sonic Truth?
I think he called him that he was it was like Blake Corum, like Trey Benson and Jalen Wright. I maybe I'm misremembering, but I could have
in Dynasty or like in the real NFL draft that's gonna happen.
Dynasty.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I said on Saturday that Jalen Wright could potentially be in the top 5, maybe even top 3 running backs drafted with how some of these other running backs are tested.
Yeah, I mean, really, really great combine from him. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to give Matty Kiwoom the crown right now before we get into the other teams. And you guys might have to defend yourself because that is a really, really solid draft from my trade god brethren right there. Congratulations, Matty. Nice, solid team. Matt, why don't you talk about your team a bit?
Yeah, so I pretty much just played off the heels of Matty the entire draft. I did get Nabers over Odunze, who I still prefer. So we kind of both won out there getting each of our preferred picks at that price. I passed on Jaden Daniels, Nabers, and Odunze. Now, I think after this combine process are the only players in between Drake Maye and the rest of the field that I would take over Jaden Daniels. Mm-hmm. Javon Baker, I got my 3rd choice there. Jason got Adonai Mitchell, who I'm falling in love with. Matty got Lad McConkey, who I'm also falling in love with. So I had to settle on Javon Baker, somebody who I'm falling in love with. So I won again by getting just a really talented receiver out of UCF. Feels like a guy who, because of his slow start to his college career being at Alabama, he might get later draft capital that will place him with a really smart, forward-thinking team that can get some use out of him right away. So I like the odds of Javon Baker to go to an offense that is forward-thinking and smart for picking a guy like Javon Baker out of the field. Will Shipley, again, my eyes went to Will Shipley when I saw Ray Garvin tweeting about him. He has I think a 90th percentile college target share, 75th percentile college target share, something in the upper quartile. He has, 80th plus percentile speed score, but he's got that small frame. He's going to be carving out a pass catching role on a team. And if he doesn't, then maybe Dylan Johnson will. So taking 2 shots in the 3rd and 4th round to get that satellite plus back, that can give me, an 8 to 10 percent target share within their first couple of seasons of football and be a fantasy relevant asset. I'm confident in one of those hitting for at least a couple of seasons. And in the 5th round, I took Jacob Cowing. We're really still getting an injury discount. He was on pace to be one of the better players at the Senior Bowl. A lot of positive things coming out of Arizona, producing in an offense that couldn't move the ball through the air to save their life. He was one of the focal points of that offense. Very versatile, very crisp routes. He's going to be a slot guy in the next level. He's like Kyle Phillips if Kyle Phillips was actually a good prospect. And I still love Kyle Phillips. So that's no hate to him. But as a prospect, he's like a more bulletproof version of him. So I'm really happy with the team that I put together. I do think I would still concede the crown to Matty.
I I agree with conceding the crown to Matty, although it is a real solid team. Javon Baker's a guy I really like from this process. Solid Senior Bowl. I like how he interviews. I know you're going to hate this, but he gives me George Pickens vibes. Like just the way he kind of stands and the confidence and aura he has. It's like total dog energy. I really like that from him. And Jacob Cowing, you mentioned the injury discount. It can't be understated how important it is to come back from an injury at the Senior Bowl and do that well at the Combine. I mean, running a sub 4.4, less than a month from, or right around a month from the Senior Bowl. I mean, that's just really cool to see. Glad to see him out there. He gives me Tank Dell kind of vibes, like the exact same stature and everything, but definitely nowhere near the college stats. So I don't think he'll be like that good, but I think that's kind of his ceiling there. And I think that's a real solid pick in the 5th round. So good draft.
Real quick before we move on, Matt, you still like Kyle Phillips?
I mean, I'm not going to be telling people to draft him in fantasy or anything, but he's just a guy who, it just really sucks the way he was earning like a 20% target share out of the gate. And he put up like 2 usable plus weeks in fantasy, and he was off to this incredible start, and then he hurts his knee. And then just all these things happen and never quite got right back in his second season. That we have Tannehill and Will Levis, but he's a decent player. He's never going to be a fantasy relevant guy, but he's a decent player, and I root for him.
That's fair.
How many teams is he on?
In my I think I had him in one dynasty league. I might have dropped him. Like I might have 0 shares.
Maybe I need to just start drafting Kyle Phillips in some best ball drafts.
I think the 1 share is in a best ball dynasty.
Hey, there we go.
You're like, you know what? I need some Phillips right now. I need him.
No, my team needed anybody who would suit up.
We'll move on now to the 106. They got Jaden Daniels after the wide receivers. That I agree with you. I think arguably Odunze and Nabers could go ahead of Drake Maye too, but I think that's going to end up being kind of the draft spots and draft capital ultimately. So right now I think that's fair. And then he gets Trey Benson, who's probably one of the bigger risers from the Combine, testing really, really well for his size. So excited to see. I think he'll sneak up even outside of the 206. I think he could end up being maybe like a 2.2, 2.3 kind of guy, depending on, what roster needs and everything when come draft day, whoever has that pick. Then getting Bucky Irving, who we already talked a bit about. Luke McCaffrey, who I think is going to be a great taxi squad candidate. I think he's going to take just a couple of years since he's new to the wide receiver position, but he's got a great build, runs really crisp routes, has understandings of the defense since he's a former quarterback. I think he's going to be solid, give him a season or two. So I like that pick. And then Jaheim Bell, probably the biggest wild card at the tight end position this draft process. A smaller guy, but still has the above 240 pounds that you like to see from a tight end. Solid route runner with some decent burst. Didn't test as well as you'd like him to, but still a really good athlete. Excited to kind of see where he lands. Tyler, I'll throw it to you. Do you have any takeaways from this one?
Luke McCaffrey, best. I think it was the number 1 3-cone time in the entire.
Was that or the shuttle?
It was the shuttle. It was one of the 2 events, but him standing out in this mega group of receivers that everybody loves. That's a great number for the kid. Great number for the kid to get in the 4th round. I don't know. I think that's and plus obviously the name recognition too, right? Luke McCaffrey. And I think I got clowned last time when I said, real quick before we move on, last mock draft live, I said something about Marvin Harrison. I think it was me, Seth, and Bradley. I think we're the 3 of us on there. I said something about Marvin Harrison, how if his name wasn't Marvin Harrison, he would would we rank Nabers over him, right? And I got clowned on that show. And all I've seen on Twitter for the past 2 weeks since I said it, not saying they stole it from me, but people are thinking the same thing. So I want to say that right now. I feel like I'm somewhat vindicated and at least posing the question. I didn't say I agreed with it. I was just posing the question.
Man is just getting defensive for the last mock draft live. Had to come back and defend himself.
Yeah, hey, Seth, where you at? Where are you at? I need my apology. My Twitter DMs are open.
Always remembering. Matt, do you have any thoughts on this draft?
On to team number 7.
JJ McCarthy. Matt, why don't you talk about team number 7?
Yeah, I'm not really taking JJ McCarthy there at 1-7. If a team does take him in the top 15 and he's going to be in a Minnesota situation, he's going to be drafted that high, and I'm not really going to scoff at it. If he truly does get that draft capital, he's going to be in a starting spot right away with a good supporting cast. I'm not necessarily going to scoff at it. I said Brock Purdy was a bust, and I mean, look what happened there. So I'm willing to admit that I can be wrong. But right now, and from what I've seen with the combine, I don't think that's the case yet. So until he gets that draft capital, I'm not touching him in the first half of the first round. But I would only take a select few. I would take Brock Bowers. Who? All right. Actually, I ran out of names pretty quickly. So maybe we found a spot for JJ McCarthy in SuperFlex, honestly, because like Troy Franklin didn't really test well. Like maybe I'd probably take Troy Franklin if you put a gun to my head, so to speak. Brian Thomas, I think there's in a SuperFlex league, he's probably where I draw the line, where now we're starting to get to prospects that have some pretty major question marks. Brian Thomas, one-dimensional. Xavier Worthy, Yak specialist, small, all these things. Adonai Mitchell is a guy who, honestly, he's my wide receiver 5. So I would be considering taking him in the back of the first round, but not the middle of the first round. So enough on JJ McCarthy. I actually think that's a fine pick. I just don't like the player and would prefer him not to be on my dynasty teams. Jalen Polk is incredible. So anytime you can walk away with Jalen Polk in the third round, just pat yourself on the back. You did a good job. Mm-hmm. Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. There's a lot of back and forth about who Braylon Allen can be, and I think his draft stock's falling a little bit after the combine. Jalen McMillan, a guy who's another unsung hero, is testing well through the process. Film looks good, and then talking about name value, Frank Gore Jr. So might as well take a shot in the 5th round.
We have the nepotism draft this year, ladies and gentlemen. So many names. So many names that we're familiar with. Shout out Maye, also in the Trade Gods League. Nice draft. I like JJ McCarthy. A tweet I saw that's been going around is the JJ McCarthy combine performance. Everyone saw what they wanted to see from him. If you went into the combine not liking JJ McCarthy, you left the combine not liking JJ McCarthy. If you went in liking him, you left liking him. I think he showed some stuff that made you happy. He showed you some stuff that left you wanting more. But ultimately, I think it was just kind of a disappointment from a media perspective, being so hyped up and not really separating himself from the field. But I think the way he tested, I mean, he ran the 6th best 3-cone drill out of any position at the combine. He has the good feet. He's a winner at the college level, and I do think he will be good at the NFL. Maybe not great, but I think he'll be good. Tyler, any thoughts before we move on to the 108?
Let's move on to the 108, baby. I feel like the 107 that was a good wrap up on it. So I'll take the 108 a little bit. I think at 108, I'm taking Brock Bowers over Troy Franklin, I think, every day of the week, just because Brock Bowers is probably going to like a good chance to go in the top 10, probably going to his floor if he was like top 15, if he really fell like top 15, like that's still great draft capital for a tight end. Troy Franklin might not even go in the first round. And I don't know if it's his tight end premium. I don't think if we listed that or whatever, but even if it's not, Brock Bowers he's the guy. He's the man. So I think I would have definitely taken Bowers over Franklin. Jonathan Brooks, I think for this value, and I say value, he was RB4, like the 4th running back off the board in this draft, but a lot of people have Jonathan Brooks as their RB1. I don't like him as RB1, but if you're getting him as the 4th running back, I'm definitely willing to take a chance on him in that scenario. So I'm not the highest on him, but I think it's good, kind of like later half of the 2nd round or mid-second. Like that's pretty good value for Jonathan Brooks, even coming off the knee injury. He said he's gonna be ready by training camp, but I guess that I'd like to see it first before I cement anything in stone. Spencer Rattler, very interesting, just overall prospect, because it feels like this is the next number 1 pick in the NFL draft, like 2 years ago. And then he has a fall from grace. Like Caleb Williams comes in, takes the spot, which I think we kind of like look back on it now. It's like, okay, maybe I see why Caleb Williams did take his spot. He's going to be the first pick in the NFL draft, and people are comparing him to Mahomes. So then he goes to South Carolina, has some decent seasons there, but nothing crazy. I think a 3rd round is a great, like, there's some NFL buzz really into the Spencer Rattler, just him as a prospect. So I don't mind Spencer Rattler, that pick. Johnny Wilson, is this guy going to play tight end or what? That's all I keep seeing on Twitter, is like, move this guy to tight end. DB tight end.
I can give an unequivocal no for that. He is really skinny.
Yeah, no, he is really skinny. Yeah. When he officially his height was 6'6", right? 6'6" was the
like
official height of the
6'6",
combine.
6'7", maybe.
Yeah, like who's better, Johnny Wilson or Harold Carmichael? Because that's kind of like, except Harold Carmichael is big boy. Anyways, Johnny Wilson, I mean, what is he gonna do at the next level other than like, is he just like how tall is A.T. Perry? I don't think he's 6'6", but that's kind of like,
not that tall.
I don't think A.T. Perry is like really. That's just kind of, it's kind of just, that feels like a similar comp, and I don't think anyone was really all excited about A.T. Perry. And then Ben Sinnott, is that how you say his name? Sinnott.
I've been saying Sinnott, but I don't know.
I'm not sure. I think he's got some serious, like, I shouldn't say serious upside, but I've seen a lot of people who are into Sinnott, at least, like tight end 2 or tight end 3 in the class, maybe a little bit behind Sanders. So I like that pick. I like this 108 team. Like, it's a solid team, except for the Bowers thing. I would go back on and draft Brock Bowers.
Yeah, you got to get Bowers there. Sinnott's a guy. Sinnott, whatever. That's a tight end I really, really do like. He's also a player. We talked about Luke McCaffrey being new to wide receiver. He's actually new to tight end. He's a basketball player. And when you know that, it makes sense why he had the best vertical, the best like 3-cone, all of the agility and kind of jumping drills he excelled at. I really do think that will help him as a tight end. Really, really good route runner for sure. We saw that at the Senior Bowl. So that's a tight end I'm kind of planting my flag on. Matt, any thoughts on 108 before we move on to the 9? All right. And then whoop your head gets one of the best the values right there. Brock Bowers, a really solid pick. Then get some Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Rasheen Ali, and Nia Smith. I mean, those are lots of kind of wild card players right there. I'm not going to dance around that at all. I really don't have much positive to say about these guys. I know Ali had a solid Senior Bowl before getting injured, but other than that, do either of you guys have any thoughts on these last 4?
Xavier Legette a riser from the combine a little bit? Ran a really good 40 time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, after I would say a disappointing Senior Bowl to have an okay combine, you have to consider that a riser. But I'm still.
We knew he was going to be fast, though.
Right,
that's fair. Yeah,
fair.
I think everyone was disappointed by his height because I think he was listed at like 6'3" in college, and did he come in at like 6 foot? I think that. I'll look it up real quick.
I want to go 6'1".
Maybe.
Yeah, he was like he was underweight and under height at the Senior Bowl and at the combine from what USC had listed. The other USC.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and start talking about this 110. We had Big Boned Ed, shout out. He's on the news desk doing some great stuff. Brian Thomas with the 110. I do think he's landing spot dependent, but I do think with the right place, he could be really good. Great combine, great measurables, really solid stats. So it's just, we got to see where he goes. Audric Estime over Marshawn Lloyd, I'm going to be a bit upset about, especially after such a disappointing combine. But then he makes up for it with the Garendo pick. We'll sit and talk about him for a bit because I think this is a very interesting prospect. He's probably the biggest riser from the combine at the running back position, maybe outside of Jalen Wright and arguably over Jalen Wright. And he's, I mean, a big dude. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds, runs a 4.33, and he's listed as a Louisville running back, but he was Braylon Allen's backup at Wisconsin for a couple seasons. Like, he's a Big Ten running back, really, before transferring and ended up with 800 something yards at Louisville. Not the greatest stats, but really good efficiency metrics. I'm pretty excited about Garendo after this combine and going to keep looking into him. What did you guys think about him? Matt.
I mean, I think he's more of an early 4th round player still. He would need to get some good draft capital. If he's a 5th, he's likely going to be a 5th round pick or later. And at that point, it's a lot of dart throws. It's a lot of situational based. And I mean, he doesn't have really the stats. He hardly has the film. He just ran really fast at the combine. And this is one of those cases where it's like, okay, if we weren't impressed with him before he ran a fast 40, why are we impressed with him now?
I guess it's maybe Isaiah Pacheco on the brain. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Pacheco's that actually stick don't really happen very often.
I'm not saying these guys are the same play style because they're not, but it kind of feels like when, and it's not that fair of a comparison, but like the Dameon Pierce thing, where like Dameon Pearson, everyone was like, he came in the league, kind of lit it on fire a little bit, but then it was like, why was this guy not playing at Florida? Like, why was he not like the guy at Florida? And it's like Isaac Grenda was the RB2 on his team at Louisville. Like, he wasn't even the RB1. So it's like, I think Matt kind of hit it on the head. Like he's big and he's fast. Is he good at football? That's the next question we need to answer. I think people will kind of be diving more into his tape. Underdog didn't even have him on their player pool, which he had a combine invite, didn't have him on their player pool, which I thought was kind of funny. But I think let's start to learn more about this guy before we take him over a guy like Ricky Pearsall, who's going to be like he might could he sneak into the back of round 3? I think maybe. I think it's at least a discussion. So I think there's some other players that I would have taken before Guerrero.
It's fair, but also in these rookie drafts, especially the mocks, you're taking the ceiling, and especially post combine, we're getting a bit excited here about Guerrero for sure. You were the next pick, and I'm sure you were excited, especially getting Ray Davis, one of your guys, right after Guerrero. But talk about your draft and what you felt.
Malachi Corley is, I just got both my guys here, so I'll try. If you've heard me talk about them before, I'll try and keep it as short as possible. Malachi Corley, I just think he's a really, really good football player. Do I exactly know what his game's going to be at the next level? No, but I love his mentality, and I love the way this guy plays football. So that's kind of why I took him there. I just think you get the ball in this guy's hands, and he makes magic happen. He's Deebo Samuel light. He doesn't have the same body as Deebo Samuel, but I think I saw something that was like, he has someone asked, some teams asked him if he'd switch to running back. I don't know how true that was. There's a whole list of players, but that's what he looks like with the ball in his hand. So I like Corley. Ray Davis, the only player in SEC history to have 1,000 yards for 2 SEC teams. So leave that there. And I just think he's, again, really good at football. I think he has the best vision in the draft, and I don't say that lightly. I truly believe that. Cody Schrader, end of the 4th round player. The guy led the SEC in rushing. So I was like, I'll take a chance on the guy who led the SEC in rushing. Also play with some other really good players too. So it's not like he was the focal point of that offense. Maybe you could argue the other wide receivers kind of lighten it up a little bit for him, but I don't know. I just think he's just a really good player. And then Jamari Thrash, solid time at the combine, or good combine showing. So late end of the draft, little dart throw there on the Louisville wide receiver.
Yeah, hey, crisp route runner and kind of just learning the slot as he talked about in his interview. So I think, maybe unpolished, but some ceiling there. And then we end the draft with 3 really, really great picks to end these rounds. Xavier Worthy at the end of the 1st, Marshawn Lloyd at the end of the 2nd, Ricky Pearsall at the end of the 3rd. Even Dylan Lobb could be really solid end of the 4th. And then Coker at the end of the 5th. I actually don't know much about him, to be completely honest, but I think that was a really solid draft. I've talked a bazillion times about Marshawn Lloyd, and I think everyone and their mother has given their Xavier Worthy opinion over the last weekend. And Ricky Pearsall's really, but is there anything maybe about Dylan Lobb or this draft from either of you guys before we sign out of here?
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. His first 3 picks are really good. Lobb at the back of the 4th is a worthy dart throw. I prefer Malik Washington or Vidal, but worthy dart throw for sure.
All right. Cool. Well, why don't we go ahead, tell the people where we can find us, and then we'll get out of here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Drop down in the comments who you think had the best draft. I think we all agree here on the stage right now that Matty Kiwoom is going to take home the crown with Rome Odunze, Ladd McConkey, Jalen Wright, Stover, and Vidal. Really solid draft there. But if you disagree, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And Matt, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Babbage_Matt10. I still call it Twitter. I'm not changing. You can also find my written work on PlayerProfiler.com/articles, and you can find me on the Dynasty Roundtable podcast on Wednesday evenings. And you can find me on the Player Profiler Today newscast on Saturdays at the Player Profiler News YouTube.
All right, great stuff going on there, Matt. Keep up the great work. Tyler, where can the people find you?
I also still call it Twitter, so don't feel bad. On Twitter at PPR Tyler. I'm on YouTube too. I'm gonna be streaming a best ball draft right after this. That's at PPR Tyler too. Go check out that channel. We'll be doing a little big board action directly after this draft. So pop on over there. I'm also at the Player Profiler News Desk doing some Dynasty related videos and also writing some articles for some franchise type stuff. So I'm also always in the chat of the Podfilers podcast. So check me out on there too. I'll be in there. Give my unfiltered takes like I did for today's Sonic Truth. Great episode too. Go check out the Sonic Truth from the episode from today. It was a really, really good one.
Yeah, go check out Sonic Truth. Go watch Tyler's mock draft right after this on his channel. Great stuff coming from you. And if you want to see more from me, you can tune into Wake and Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern on this channel, as well as follow me on Twitter as well. A Bird Gang guy over here, not getting rid of Twitter either. Got to do it. That's at JFootballWine. Shoot me a follow over there, and make sure you follow Player Profiler on all of our social media channels. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, it's all there. Go follow us. Go find us. There's great content coming out every single day. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Drop down the best draft in the comments, and you guys have a wonderful week and happy drafting. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.